5,000 miles to the east of the Aleutian Islands, nestled in the Irish Sea, lies the Isle of Man. According to legend, the Isle of Man was founded by a mystical race of Celts, the Tuatha De Danann, who possessed magical powers. Banished from heaven for their sorcery and advanced knowledge, they descended on Ireland in a cloud of mist.
It said that at the end of their time, they just sort of vanished, left behind their ghosts, quite literally. And these are remembered in folklore of the Isle of Man as the little people.
The so-called little people are believed by the locals to be able to put humans under a magical spell. A spell in which all awareness of space and time is lost.
Kidnapping human beings is one of the chief activities of the little people. And the whole point of these stories is that the humans tend to come back from the other realm, often finding that hundreds of years have passed.
And this sounds really, really similar to what people experience sometimes during alien abduction events, where a ship will show up, the very small aliens will come out, they'll find themselves paralyzed, they'll have missing time experiences. There's reason to believe that the little people may have in fact been extraterrestrials, the same greys as we describe them, that perform the same types of magical enchantment on people that they abduct today.
Could the legends of the little people and the ancestral Tuatha De Danann actually be describing otherworldly beings that came to Earth in the distant past? And if so, might these legends be connected to modern-day UFO sightings over the Isle of Man? Locals claim that these UFO sightings have been reported for centuries. And for ancient astronaut theorists, the most compelling sighting of all is a 2,500-year-old report of a fiery wheel with 3 spokes descending from the heavens.
According to legend, on the Isle of Man, some fishermen were washed ashore during a terrible storm. Suddenly, this 3-spoked craft came out of the clouds, terrifying.
There have been sightings on the Isle of Man, going back centuries, of what are described as wheels or fiery wheels in the sky. Now, these descriptions are almost identical to the description of the Wheel of Ezekiel in the Bible.
According to Ezekiel chapter 1, the prophet saw a flying object described as 4 wheels within a wheel, an account that ancient astronaut theorists say is not of an angel, but of an extraterrestrial spacecraft.
Biblical scholars have very much struggled with the description of Ezekiel's wheel, seeing wheels within wheels. The idea that a cherub was standing next to each wheel. It's very clear that he's describing some type of device.
Ezekiel describes wheels within a wheel and eyes of different animals, and they're all gleaming like bronze and metal. So what is really described here? It reads much more like an encounter with some type of an extraterrestrial craft that was misinterpreted as some type of a divine event.
So you have to think, really, that Isle of Man was some kind of island that was chosen by the extraterrestrials. This was one of their bases. They would land their UFOs there. And in fact, legends about UFOs and extraterrestrials continue on the island even to this day.
The Giza Plateau, Egypt. 3 great pyramids line the desert just outside of Cairo. Constructed more than 4,000 years ago, this unique trio of monuments is arguably the most recognizable in all the world. The pyramids also employ the most magnificent use of triangles in architecture.
you had in ancient Egypt what we might think of as a Masonic tradition. There were the builders themselves who embodied the knowledge of geometry, the knowledge of tool making, and how to put buildings together, and especially how to create buildings that were themselves the vehicles for initiating or inducing higher consciousness.
The Giza pyramids are very interesting in that you have 3 major pyramids. Their sides are triangles. Think of the triangle, the simplest, most perfect geometric form.
The ancients were certainly intrigued by geometry, indeed sacred geometry, and certainly a triangle is one of those basic archetypal shapes that perhaps is hardwired into the human consciousness, and this may find expression in monuments such as the pyramids.
You've got that progress towards perfection, towards the top of the triangle. It's a very upward directed, higher directed shape, and I think we kind of get that on a subconscious level.
So there is a sense in which the number 3 in the form of the triangle, in the form of the apex of the pyramid, represents a portal, a gateway into another realm. You might say it's a realm of the gods.
Do the 3 pyramids of Giza really represent some sort of portal to a divine realm? Perhaps more clues about the sacred nature of the triangle can be found by examining the work of one of the most celebrated mathematicians of all time. Samos, Greece, 6th century BC. Greek mathematician and philosopher Pythagoras introduces his famous theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The formula explains the mathematical relationship between the 3 sides of right triangles. And some believe it was originally based on the design of the Egyptian pyramids.
Pythagoras lived 2,500 years ago. It is said that he studied with the great teachers of Egypt, and he brought the wisdom of Egypt back to Greece. That, in effect, was the birth of Greek philosophy.
For Pythagoras, and for a lot of ancient philosophers, mathematics was a kind of more precise description of the supernatural. They're coming to terms with man's place on this earth, and one of the ways you do that is by measurements, and measurements have to develop, and when they develop more complex mathematics. And Pythagoras is one of the very early philosophers to develop this stuff.
Pythagoras taught that everything in the universe has a 3-part structure, and every problem in the universe can be reduced diagrammatically to a triangle. To Pythagoras and his followers, the triangle represented ascension, and the triangle itself, and the number 3 was the key to all the hidden mysteries.
In Karnak, France, there are thousands of megalithic standing stones that are over 6,000 years old, and many of them are in the form of a right triangle or a Pythagorean triangle. And they were built many thousands of years before Pythagoras. These same geometric relationships of the right triangle have also been found at Avebury and Stonehenge. And you have to ask yourself, does the Pythagorean triangle represent some kind of special extraterrestrial geometry? A geometry of 3s?
The bottom line is that a squared plus b squared equals c squared applies to the entire universe. And so for Pythagoras to come up with this, of course, is extraordinary, but he was not the first.
So we know that Pythagoras got this information from ancient Egypt. And the ancient Egyptians themselves say that this was knowledge from the gods. So what we have is a situation whereby the ancient Egyptians got this information from a non-human intelligence, from an extraterrestrial source, preserved it in secret for thousands of years. And Pythagoras is really the first one to take it outside of Egypt and basically begin to speak to the world about what it is, what the ancient Egyptians knew about this divine information.
Did Pythagoras really get his knowledge of geometry and its profound connection to the universe from an otherworldly source?
Pythagorean triangle may contain wisdom that we still haven't understood in terms of how physical terrestrial geometry connects to extraterrestrial domains that may coexist with our own.
London, England, 1971. After years of studying ancient philosophical teachings relating to the Egyptian mystery schools, author John Michel unearths evidence of an ancient code. A numerical and geometric code seemingly embedded not only in the sacred structures of ancient Egypt, but also in the Hebrew world and in the plans for the heavenly city of New Jerusalem.
Jean Michel was a scholar, he was a mystic, he was a genius and a very, very prolific author. He had an incredible understanding of Earth geometry and geography. But what Jean Michel is most famous for is the New Jerusalem diagram.
By carefully examining the physical description of New Jerusalem in Revelation 21, Michel uncovered a sacred design. At the core of Michel's diagram is the squaring of the circle and the division of the circle into equal sectors, a zodiac wheel, and the positioning of 12 gates to the heavenly city, 3 on each side of the square, representing the 12 tribes of Israel.
This is also a geometric figure, and John Michel claimed that this would be how the New Jerusalem was to be built in the future, and that all this was encoded in Revelations in a mathematical, geometric way.
In his book, The Dimensions of Paradise, Michel proposed that this sacred geometry represented the order of the universe. Ancient astronaut theorists suggest that this exact same geometrical concept can be found halfway around the world, in Nazca, Peru. Here in the desert, among the many plant and animal glyphs, is a geometric design that looks much different from the rest of the Nazca lines. It is called the Sun Star and Cross.
The Nazca Sun Star glyph is one of the most interesting glyphs to be seen at Nazca, and in fact, because it's in a remote area of the Palpa Valley, it's not actually seen by many tourists. But it is by far the strangest and most mathematically precise of all of the diagrams at Nazca.
The Sun Star and Cross glyph is a precisely formed star polygon made of 2 squares surrounding a perfect circle, all sharing the same center and diameter. Inside the grid are wheels within wheels and squares within squares. The design mirrors not only New Jerusalem's sacred geometry, but also offers up yet another connection.
When you look at it, it's very obviously what is called a mandala or a yantra in ancient India or Tibet. What a mandala yantra glyph is doing in remote desert of Peru is very interesting.
It's a very sacred symbol. It's this idea of being connected with the realm of the gods. And then we have to once again ask ourselves, well, what was the realm of the gods? It's very interesting to note that seen from the sky, it is very similar, not identical, but very similar to, for example, the layout of the temples at Borobudur.
The Buddhist temple of Borobudur lies over 11,000 miles west of Nazca in Indonesia and is laid out with a series of precise circles within a platform of perfect squares.
one has to wonder if somehow all these sites are connected, because that is what the ancient astronaut theory excels in, that people in our ancient past were not isolated. They had contact with each other. In the end, there is an extraterrestrial connection.
Is this something that was taught by the ancients from one culture to the rest, and they incorporated these divine cities, these new Jerusalems? Or is this something that may have been given to us by some divine intelligence?
Is it possible that the New Jerusalem design, the Sun Star and Cross of Nazca, the Temple of Borobudur, and other geometric structures around the world are encoded with similar mathematic and geometric principles? And if so, are they part of an alien message that is meant not only to inform us of our celestial origins, but to guide us towards a reconnection? Madras, India. In the first decade of the 20th century, Srinivasa Ramanujan, a young mathematician with no formal training, repeatedly stuns the academic world with innovative theorems. Even some of the world's leading mathematicians are confounded by his remarkable formulas. But just as astounding as Ramanujan's work is the fact that these formulas came to him in dreams.
He claimed that a goddess, a Hindu goddess known as Namagiri, transmitted these theorems to him. These theorems came to be known as modular functions, and still to this day, they are the most advanced form of mathematics that is used by physicists dealing with relativity and quantum mechanics.
How could someone without any background in mathematics see such complicated theorems in dreams? Does Ramanujan's story reveal how humanity can access knowledge outside the brain?
So it really raises, I think, the interesting question as we explore consciousness more from a scientific point of view and understand it better. What types of connections and communications are occurring on the more cosmic scale? So what other connections exist out there, I think, is a very interesting question to explore.
The people who have these inspirations, it's not like they were deriving it. It comes from the unconscious. And the unconscious is still a great mystery. Is it just our unconscious, or is it the collective unconscious?
Could true genius be the product of a universal mind or collective unconsciousness? Ancient Hindus believed such a repository of knowledge actually exists. A universal force that includes every thought, action, emotion, or experience that any person ever had or ever will have. Westerners later named it the Akashic Record.
This is a Sanskrit word. It means sky. It's something that can be accessed through your mind, through your brain power, through your spiritual wavelength. Having access to that information which is there, that is not written, but somehow you have to be able to be in tune with that frequency in order to obtain that.
Could it be that the common talent all geniuses possess is actually an ability to access the wisdom of the Akashic Record or universal mind? And if so, have other modern geniuses acquired knowledge from an otherworldly realm? Einstein received the inspiration for his groundbreaking theory of relativity in a dream. Friedrich August Kekulé discovered the elusive shape of the benzene molecule during a daydream in which he saw a snake chasing its tail. And the brilliant Russian chemist Dmitry Mendeleev literally dreamed up the periodic table of the elements.
He, in this dream, saw exactly where all of the elements lined up. The periodic table itself came in a dream, just fully formed. After coming out of the dream, he quickly drew them all down.
and it's still the same that we use today.
Is it possible that a universal mind has bestowed genius on certain individuals throughout history? And might there be scientific evidence of this phenomenon? At the Mind Research Network at the University of New Mexico, neuropsychologist Rex Young uses a magnetoencephalography, or MEG machine, to measure the brainwave activity of a test subject. Dr. Young believes this test may show how creative inspiration strikes the brain.
Okay, Andre, you ready to begin? We have 3 tasks that we're going to run with Andre. First one is vocabulary, second one is paper folding, and the third one is inductive reasoning. Andre, I want you to clench your jaw now.
As the test subject performs these everyday tasks, the MEG machine measures normal brain activity.
Andre, now move your eyes back and forth.
But then, Young has the test subject clear his mind.
Andre, can you close your eyes and relax your brain for a moment, please?
As the subject relaxes his mind, his brain activity decreases. But then suddenly, the MEG machine detects something new: alpha waves. Scientists say these brain waves indicate the unconscious mind is working behind the scenes, outside our conscious thoughts.
The alpha wave have found to be associated with divergent thinking, the manifestation of creative cognition. And it's also associated with relaxing the brain. And this is something very important, I think, to the manifestation of genius, this ability to think of new and useful ideas that haven't been thought of before.
Could alpha waves have been how Ramanujan, Einstein, and Mendeleev received their flashes of brilliance? Or how the ancients could have channeled the gods' wisdom as they developed their civilization? If so, where does mainstream science believe these thoughts come from?
That is the million-dollar question. It's kind of like, what is consciousness? This is kind of a question that really stumps neuroscientists.
Ancient astronaut theorists believe it is possible that what appears to be divine or inspired brilliance that pops unexpectedly into the minds of geniuses could come not from the human mind, but from an extraterrestrial realm.
Overall, time after time, we're seeing a through line here suggesting that there is a deliberate interface with our minds that is steering the progress of human invention and human innovation according to a predefined script for a desired targeted outcome.
So you have to ask yourself, are extraterrestrials somehow using this incredible volume of knowledge of the universal mind and then directing it to certain people at certain times when the time is right, and in a sense supervising the education of certain people who are ready to receive this knowledge?